You're listening to Contesting Wrestling, Minisode 33. Guess what? Guess what, everybody? I was going to say guess what, motherfuckers, but I want to include everybody in this, not just motherfuckers. This is chapter 100 of Contesting Wrestling. If you total up all of our main feed episodes, all of our premium episodes, which you should be listening to on at patreon.com/contestingwrestling, $5 a month, come out every week, and all of our minisodes, this is the 100th thing that we've done.
100th installment.
Yeah.
This is technically the 100th installment of Contesting Wrestling then. Fantastic. Man, we put out a lot of stuff.
We really have. Yeah, it's been like 9 months.
I sometimes feel like all I am doing is editing this podcast. I have dreams about Audacity.
To our listeners, I imagine this is mostly would be our Patreon subscribers who this could possibly be true of. If any of you have actually listened to all 100 installments, please tell us.
Yes, please.
And
Yes.
we'll figure out some way to reward you.
Yeah, we do not have merch or anything yet. We got some stickers. We got some
stickers.
nice looking stickers, but we will find some way to reward you. We're hoping to have more guests soon, which will hopefully get us more listeners and more money, and then we can have merch and shit.
Check out this coming Monday. We have a really big guest, Jordan Olds from 2 Minutes to Late Night, and the
he's cool.
director and producer of Nobody's Watching Wrestling will be on.
Yeah,
So
it
we're
was
excited
a
about that.
fantastic episode. He is a delightful human being.
Yeah, he was very interesting.
So it'll be cool. That'll be our 101st installment.
101. Everyone is a celebration.
Wait,
Yeah, we
no,
should-
because we're counting that one. Because of the way that this all works. So this is that, like, if that can't be the 100 wait, is it? Have we actually recorded more than 100? I'm so confused.
Yeah. This is the 100th thing to be released.
Okay.
Okay, I see.
Then the next release will be...
I see.
Okay,
Okay, so we've
that makes
actually
sense.
recorded like 104 things. Okay, all right.
Right, listener-facing. This
Listener
is the 100th.
facing.
And that's
Okay.
really what matters.
Little
I would think.
little peek under the hood, listeners, where I don't know what's happening, or it's scary under the hood. It's I'm just like those little guys that are inside your car that are just punching the wheels really a lot to make them go fast.
We're from New York City. We don't really know how cars work. They go fast.
Yeah, it's the little guys. They're related to the guys who live in the TV who do all the shows.
And
Yes.
the guy who sits under the wrestling ring to make all the slammy noises.
Right.
Yeah, we keep stealing his chairs.
We keep
He's very
stealing
upset
his
about it.
chairs. Oh, man.
He's got all
It's
these
so-
kendo sticks. He collects kendo sticks.
So, even though we mentioned it in the premium recording we just made, we should shout out our new patrons here on the Minisode.
Yes.
That would be David Kim, who was the guest on our show just last week, who we're going to be talking about him a little bit. Thank you, David, for subscribing. Enjoy the rest of our vast catalog. And Andre Johnson, whom, as I established in that recording, I've never heard of before. And thank you very much, Andre. Enjoy the rest of our
Giant Rock.
guests. Yes, the Giant Rock.
Andre the Giant Rock Johnson.
Andre the Giant Rock Johnson. That's what I'm going to start calling him.
Andre-
Enjoy the rest of our catalog. We're real happy to have you on board, man. Thank you very much.
Andre the hit Hulk man Johnson.
You just keep adding stuff.
I'm gonna suck as much air out of the room as I possibly can. Okay.
Like
there we go.
I said, this guy, I'm certainly, I don't know who he is, but he's a huge fan of Baron Corbin. And there's got to be one.
I've
There's
heard
actually
that
two.
about.
Katie's a big fan of Baron Corbin. So that's two.
I've heard that about people that we don't know.
Yes.
So I actually have a couple things to say in reflection on episode 32 that this minisode is meant to be reflecting on. You guys are looking at me like you got a problem with that.
No, I'm just...
I'm just staring off into space.
What, man?
So first of all, I thought it was kind of ironic. You know, Dave told us this story
Don't you
about
think?
how a little too ironic.
And then, like the song, you're now going to list a bunch of stuff that's just unfortunate circumstance
Right,
and not actually ironic.
I was waiting for you to be like, and yeah, I really do think. But
I forgot.
maybe you
I forgot that part.
Yeah. You forgot
It's
that
an
you weren't
old
as
song by now.
loyal and devoted an Alanis Morissette fan.
I heard her last album was really good.
I wouldn't be
Yeah?
surprised, you know. Jagged Little Pill was really good. I think people's problems with the album after Jagged Little Pill was that she had a great time touring and got rich and then wrote an album where she's like, all my problems went away. And people were like, that's not why I want to
No.
hear you perform. And then she was like, I don't give a crap. And then she just did whatever she wanted for the rest of her career. And that's one of the reasons why she's a great artist.
I want my singer-songwriters to not grow emotionally. Okay,
Yeah.
I like that PJ Harvey still is just having trouble with dudes.
Right. Eventually, maybe it's you. That's been the most modern thing about that is that's what people complain about the Taylor Swift songs. Like after her 5th album, leading with a hit song about how somebody she doesn't like him. It's like you go to counseling. Like
Well,
PJ Harvey turned the corner eventually on that.
Well, also,
Her most recent albums are more about like politics and history and stuff.
Yeah.
true.
I still don't like them that much, but
She also at least
artistically, she's coming from a better place.
She also, at least like any great songwriter, also knows that it's her. She knows that, at least on her early work.
Yeah.
But anyway, all right, yeah. So episodes.
So what the
what,
fuck?
Wrestling?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, right. So Dave was talking about how Kawada, whereas like Misawa was made the new Tiger Mask and everything and pushed to the moon from the beginning, Kawada was sent to fucking deepest, darkest Saskatchewan to get abused by Stu Hart.
that's the correct word to use.
Ironic then, I was gonna go with tortured. Which,
Also acceptable.
also appropriate.
He got stewed.
He got
Which is
stewed.
funny that later on it was Misawa who left to form Pro Wrestling Noah and Kawada who stayed because he was loyal to the company that had given him the short end of the stick his whole career. I thought that was kind of funny.
Ain't that how it goes?
It's like, it's what's it called? The Stockholm Syndrome.
Yeah.
Right. He came to identify with his abuser there, the All Japan Pro Wrestling. So there was that.
That's a bit of a story.
Also, we had mentioned I had mentioned the Kawada kicks. I just wanted to describe that for people because that was a big signature of his. He holds his opponent face down. They're standing up, but they're leaning over, and then just like snap kicks them in the face several times in rapid succession. It's quite something there.
It's one of the moves that a lot of guys in the American indie scene in the early 2000s tried to do, and very few of them did it well, where it actually looked like
Low-Key
did it well. Samoa Joe did it well. Both of those people wrestled in Japan, but a lot of people would just be like, you bend over and I'll kick you in the face. And it just didn't look good because the kicks didn't have any snap to them. They were just bad strikes. A lot of bad strikes. A lot of people who imitated these great wrestlers that we watched decided just to throw bad strikes. Forceful strikes that hurt a lot but didn't look very good, which is the opposite of what you should be going for, guys.
Right. I have a little more context for the Great Kojika Masa Saito match. So it was the main event of the show. It was a series of matches pitting New Japan against Big Japan. And this was like the tiebreaker. So I understand a little bit more why they did this match. Because, New Japan was going to have to win. But part of the point of doing the series was to put over Big Japan, which was the newer promotion. So for the tiebreaker, they had to have New Japan win, but instead of having Masa Saito beat another top-level BJW guy, which would have really been a definitive win for New Japan, they had him beat the co-owner of Big Japan, so symbolically it's still a victory over Big Japan, but it's kind of somewhat of a meaningless victory given that the guy wasn't really much of a wrestler. So that's one of these sort of politics, psychology things that becomes important when you have these kinds of like crossover shows.
Yeah, that's lukewarm as hell. That's one of the problems with doing these shows. They get big hype, and then like in execution, the fans want to see a real victor. And then when there's not, they don't remember the show as fondly. You can do that once in a while, and it's fine. if you do it too often, the fans start realizing that nothing's ever going to happen, and then they stop watching.
How ironic that Big Japan is newer, but New Japan is bigger.
Man, I never thought about it like that.
Is that accurate at all? I completely
Yes.
pulled that out of
No,
my
yeah,
ass.
it's true.
Wow, all
Yes,
right.
very-
Hey,
very
go
much so.
my ass for having cool things in it for me to pull out.
Completely.
You were half listening to what I was just
I
saying.
did.
Good job, Evan.
Look, man, I really try when you guys get technical. I really try.
Oh,
No,
yeah. and-
when we get into these nerdier details of things,
Because I have to hear it. It's when I'm editing that I'm just like, oh my god, what? Who are these people that they're talking about?
Well, yeah,
like,
Puroresu is great, but it's a very deep hole, and it's a very different hole than trying to get into American wrestling. And like, it's the same thing as getting
you need
into
more lube.
You need more lube, right? For Kenta Kobashi's gigantic forearms. My point has nothing to do with Kenta's forearms. It's that in order to get into any kind of media that is produced primarily in a foreign country in a language that you don't know, it takes a lot of extra effort. You have to make a lot of effort, like, for example, to learn everybody's name in a way that it's a lot harder than if everybody's name is already familiar to you. Like, I don't know anybody named Mitsuharu.
I wanted to point out that was perfect. Evan, you brought up the analogy with like great 19th century Russian literature, like Tolstoy and Dostoevsky. It has the exact same problem where you have to like remember all of these long, complicated foreign Russian names.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Oh, and you feel bad while you do because you're just like, oh, these all sound so similar. Like, yeah.
Why do they all have to have 3 names?
Yeah, with
Too
9
yeah.
syllables each.
Too many names. 19th century Russia.
And they all end
Get
with
working on that.
Ievich.
But that's just a cultural thing, you know. Some names, some cultures have really, really long names, and everybody within doesn't matter to them because they're used to it, because that's what cultural differences are. But the people who really get into Poro, it just becomes second nature. Like if you get into anything Japanese, eventually it's just like the only thing that foreign means is something that's foreign to you. You know.
Yeah.
I was gonna say not only does it become second nature, but it becomes a point of pride.
Yes.
Like I learned this. You know, there was a curve, and I got past it.
I watch it in
and
Japanese.
I felt that way reading Dostoevsky. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I felt that reading Dostoevsky, even though I never read it in Russian. But just like, oh yeah, you know, I know what the fuck is going on here. I navigated the sea of names.
I met a guy at a bar in college once who learned French so he could read Proust's In Search of Lost Time in the original French. And he was.
I haven't even had the discipline to read that in English.
No. I have it. I own it in English, and that's really the first part of reading a book is having it in your possession. So that's where I am. Am I fucking frozen again?
Well, it's gonna be really fun to find out what Evan actually just said in the last.
Yeah.
God,
you cut out and then you came back. It was actually kind of ideal.
Shit ass balls. Oh, okay.
It'll be
Am
on
I
the
back
recording
now?
Yeah, you're totally back
Okay.
now.
We'll be there. Yeah,
Yeah,
we,
good.
we'll have to find out what you said. I'm sure it was brilliant.
You were talking
I hope
something
so.
about how
I
you
already-
actually own a book, which presumes that the first thing you said was that you stole a book.
Okay.
And I don't know if you're talking about Steal This Book by Abby Hoffman, which, the kind of thing that my dad used to read and be like, you go to a bookstore one day and you just take this. And it's like, no, I'm not going to do that. But, right on, I guess. But I'm not going to go do that.
Did System of a Down had Steal This album?
Yes, they had
Yes.
Steal This album. It was a
Yes.
collection of unreleased stuff. I like that album. There you go.
I wish I could tell you what I said, but I'm very hungry and tired.
Yeah, no, it's
and
okay. It'll
I
be on
haven't
the-
slept
very
properly in
last
several
thing.
days.
It'll be on the
Very
recording.
last thing. I know it's becoming a running theme. Like every week we have to shout out someone who died. But hardcore indie wrestling legend Danny Havoc died this week. I wasn't super familiar with his stuff, but apparently everybody absolutely loved him, said he was super creative and cool and interesting. There's a documentary. So Vice, they've done this Dark Side of the Ring series, but before that they did a series called The Wrestlers. And they did one on deathmatch wrestling where they profile Havoc a bit. Also, in watching that, I realized that we really made quite an omission in our coverage of deathmatch wrestling by not talking about Atsushi Onita, who was the guy who pretty much created it in Japan.
The guy who ran Frontier Martial Arts Wrestling, FMW.
FMW,
The
yeah.
league under which the Cactus Jack versus Terry Funk match was being held under.
So if you watched Onita, and also totally independently, this other guy, Jun Kasai, they wax very philosophical about deathmatch wrestling. And I found it absolutely fascinating what they had to say. They both independently, when they were asked, what do you think that the audience gets out of watching this? They both gave exactly the same answer, which I don't know if it's like the answer they decided they came up with they were going to use whenever reporters asked them. But they both said, when people watch our matches and they see the lengths that we are willing to go to win the match, they will do their best the next day at work or at school. Like, we are serving this social function.
That's interesting. It's
Yeah, I mean,
interesting.
That's how they see it.
That is kind of a very pure. I feel like that's a very pure representation of like the artist in the evolution of the artist's role in society, kind of. Because I think I do think that any sort of performance art really has its role in just humans around the fire in ancient days being like, I really need to think about how I just need to take my mind off the day. I was hungry, and then Gruck got gored by a bison we were hunting, and so someone do a show and just take my mind off of things, and I think that's really I think that is still absolutely the role of art, is to just make things that people can just forget for a sec. I mean, there's a lot of roles. One of the many roles that it plays, but it is always it is still a service to society. A service to people.
It's funny hearing them make the claim that deathmatch wrestling makes the audience better people. It's kind of awesome, and it's especially awesome because they have this super nerdy American fan who goes to Japan to follow Onita and talk to him, and Onita's saying all this shit and you believe it coming out of him, and then the American fan's like, yeah, right on, man, to give him a pound or whatever, and Onita's looking at him like, yeah, I don't know if it's really having the desired effect on you, man.
Yeah, don't touch me.
If I touch you, I will become weaker.
Yes.
You will get weakness on me.
Yeah.
Oh God.
So that's really worth watching. I'm probably going to go through and watch that whole series, The Wrestlers, because Vice, they do really good stuff about wrestling.
Yeah. I should watch some of their. I gotta watch some of the Vice stuff.
Yeah, the Dark Side of the Ring has been great. I can't bring myself, like I said this earlier, I can't bring myself to watch the hardest ones. I might at some point, but some of the less hard ones, which also include death in many cases, like the Herbie Abrams UWF.
Yo,
one.
I was just gonna say you gotta
my
watch
God.
the UWF
I watched the
one.
UWF one. What a crazy
Oh my goodness.
Evan, that's one to watch. The guy named Herb Abrams in the UWF. The big punchline in it, which is also the best promotion for it, is one of the guys at the end saying with a complete solemn straight face, "Herbie died as he lived, covered in cocaine and hookers." And that was just the whole story. And I also really enjoyed the Brawl for All one. I've been saying, I was thinking we should do a Brawl for All episode and watch several of the fights. I don't necessarily think so. We should watch that and maybe one of the fights, because it does a very good job of explaining it.
The thing about the Herbie Abrams thing is it's basically the story of what if you took a massive wrestling fan and just he had unlimited funds to spend on his own vision of pro wrestling, but had no idea what the fuck he was doing whatsoever. And also was a insane cokehead and just wanted to party constantly. Yeah. It's really fucking wild.
It's crazy. It's a notorious thing in wrestling.
Yeah.
A notorious thing.
All right,
yeah, I guess
yeah, so look forward to our I forgot.
Normally, this is where we plug all of our shit, but it's June 3rd, and we're deep into several days of riots, and so instead I'm going to tell you to check out the Brooklyn Bail Fund. I'm going to tell you to check out Campaign Zero, who is a long campaign trying to deal with actual reform around policing this country. Check the show notes for a whole bunch of other links and resources for you to, donate some time or some energy, or just, spread around, because there needs to be real change, because people are, we're 4 centuries of immiseration of the black community in this country has to fucking stop, because it has to fucking stop. That's the end of it. So I'll check the show notes for all of that. And stay safe, but also
be safe out there.
Yeah, be safe out there. If you can go into the streets, you should. But if you can't, and there's a lot of reasons you can't, you shouldn't feel guilty about that. There are a lot of other things you can do.
And nobody's judging you.
Nobody's judging you, but there is always something you can do. There's always something you can do to contribute, and we must show solidarity at this time. So
if there's really nothing you can do now, remember that this isn't the whole thing. This is likely the beginning of a much longer political movement, that if you really have no resources to do, physically, mentally, or financially to deal with it right now, there will be opportunities over the next few weeks and next several months to get involved and help in a variety of ways. Keep your eyes open for something that suits your skills. There's a lot of people, and if we all do what we can do, stuff can get done.
This has been Contesting Wrestling. Thank you. We love you.